I'm your host, Amla Bonobi. Taylor's here.
What?
Always Taylor giving the male perspective on the show. And today it's going to be much needed because we have Savanah Hernandez on.
What's up, girl? Hi. Everybody, welcome to the Estrogen Hour.
Yes.
How are y'all doing?
now.
Hi.
We're doing fantastic. I hope you guys are doing well. Let me know. Oop, I keep hitting your cord. How you guys are doing in the chat down below. How's your day been? What's going on? What news are you listening to? I brought Savannah here today because we're going to talk fatphobia, feminism, and fake Amber Heard. I imagine you're pretty well versed on many of these topics.
Oh, the topics. I'm actually fatphobic myself, so I'm glad that you brought me on to talk about this issue that's very near and dear to my heart. Thank you.
Yes, we're all on the same page, I think, as far as fatphobia goes. You know how I feel about phobias, guys. I hate that everything that you dislike or you disagree with is suddenly a phobia. Ridiculous, and we will get into that because we're going to react to some crazy leftists on none other than TikTok, the most atrocious piece of social media ever, talking about their experience with fatphobia and that distinct discrimination that they go through every single day, apparently. So, Savannah, before we get into that, can you introduce yourself, tell your story, how you got here, and what you're working on right now?
Sure. So my name is Savanah Hernandez. I'm an independent journalist who basically goes out on the streets of America and asks my fellow man, hey, how do you feel about the Supreme Court potentially overturning Roe v. Wade? Or I'll go to the border and kind of check out what the mainstream media isn't showing us. I was recently in San Francisco covering the fentanyl crisis. You know, California has a very big issue with that. I was realizing, it's funny, I was actually here 2 weeks ago. I was covering Skid Row and the Tenderloin District, and I swore I would never come back to California. I'm from Texas, and I was like, I hate this whole state. I'm never coming back here.
Yeah.
And here I am. But I'm on a Mala show, guys, so I'm having a good time. So that's a little bit about me. And yeah, I'm just, I popped into this closet. And then you were like, come on the show, and here I am. So TikToks, man, I'm excited.
For your viewing pleasure. I feel like all you have to do is come to California once, and you're like, oh, okay, first of all, this is not at all what I expected, and secondly, I don't ever need to be here again.
Yeah, looking at the beach is nice, but then you wander into the wrong neighborhood, and it goes downhill real fast.
Yeah, I mean,
real
it's just,
fast.
you cross one street, and all of a sudden, you're like, I am suddenly unsafe.
I'm like, I'm a little bit afraid. You know what? I covered the BLM riots in 2020, and I said this in all of my stand-ups. I said, I felt more safe at an active BLM riot scene than I did on the streets of San Francisco at 2 p.m., and that is not an exaggeration.
No, it's not at all. I've even just driven through that area and been like, why is this like this? It's just like third world country type stuff happening right now. Do you feel like, in your experience working on this, doing really investigative journalism on these things, that it's reshaped your perspective? Because I know you already went in with sort of this conservative view of things. Did actually seeing it with your own eyes change anything?
100%. And I feel like as females, we are more emotional. So for me, I always bring in the emotion with my reporting, not entirely because, of course, we want to keep those journalistic standards,
right?
But the emotional aspect of seeing Americans slumped over using fentanyl and meth in the middle of the day, listening to these volunteers who are off record telling me, the homeless have died in my arms here, and the city is emboldening it. They're allowing it. They're funding it, and there's nothing that we can do. The police officer's saying, we can't arrest people because the DA is just going to let them out the next day. That's really heartbreaking to see. And with the border issue, too, watching people just swim across the Rio Grande, make their way into this country and say, okay, this is our home now, and the National Guard talking to me about everything that they're going through with dealing with the cartels, is just heartbreaking to see because this administration is allowing this to prosper, and our entire media is like, it's not happening.
Right.
It's totally not happening. And I'm like, I think it is, though.
Yeah. I didn't hit you. You hit yourself. Lower your expectations.
Exactly.
This is not what America's meant to provide for you. Just get used to it, type of thing.
I'm sorry. Go back to being brown and oppressed, please. Thanks. I'm like, okay. Thanks, media.
Yeah.
Thanks, America.
That's one more thing we should touch on before we get into today's subject matter, is that we share being POC.
We're minorities. How did we get here?
We're minorities within a minority now.
I know. It's just, Mala, I'm just so proud of us for, having to work so hard this morning. We had to wake up, put our makeup on, sit in these chairs and talk about the state of America.
You're going to make me cry.
It's hard being an oppressed woman, and specifically an oppressed minority in this country. It's heartbreaking to have to live through this every single day.
Yes, we have to live with this skin color. We have to live with this gender, and we have to fight every single day,
every
ladies
day.
and gentlemen.
Every day, the injustice, okay? Horrible.
Did you have a come out moment as a conservative, or was that just always what you were and people knew this about you?
I was more secretly conservative, and then I started working for Alex Jones back in 2018, and then people were like,
cat's out of the bag.
How do you feel? Well, it was actually funny because I didn't know anything about him when I started working for him. They hired me as a production assistant, but then I started doing my own man on the streets, and what sparked that curiosity was that everyone on the left was going insane on the streets of America, and I was a blank slate at that point. I really wasn't interested in politics, so I was like, hey, you're taking time out of your day to hate on the current president. Tell me why you hate him.
Yep.
Convince me and change my mind, because I don't know what I believe. And then I realized that everyone was so rabid and crazy, and we had grown adults on the streets of America taking time out of their days to protest somebody, and they had no reason why they were upset. And then it was at that moment that I realized, okay, there's an issue. And then I was working with Alex, so I started doing more reporting. And because I was with Alex, people that were my friends that were leftists were like, you're bad by association. So that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, and it hits you all at once, and you're like, I'm going to be conservative even harder now.
Yeah, exactly. Because, so many people attack me too. They're like, oh, you're associated with him, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not Alex Jones, bro. Right. I have my own thoughts and opinions. That's the thing. I've learned, I've grown, I've evolved in this entire space, as everybody should be doing. Yeah. And I've formulated my own opinions. So, maybe you try that too, all the people that are trying to destroy my career.
Well, how dare you, Savannah?
I know.
How absolutely dare you?
I know.
Now, let's get into something that I'm sure you're well aware of, and that is this whole body positivity, fat phobia movement that we're experiencing right now. Before we get into these crazy TikToks, what are your initial thoughts on just all of that as a whole?
Well, I was reading a headline the other day that said that working out is inherently right-wing. And I work out a lot, and that was kind of concerning because I thought that right-wing people were like domestic terrorists, so I was a little bit concerned about that. So apparently that's the thing now.
Right.
No, jokes aside, though, I do think that the fat acceptance movement, the body positivity movement, has been so detrimental to women, not only from a health perspective, but from a mental health perspective too, because these women want to be told that the way that they're living is healthy, it's good. They want other people to promote it and to encourage it and tell them that, that they're great, but it's not great.
Right.
And when we call this out, it's not coming from a place of condemnation or we hate them. It's coming from a place of love, because genuinely, if you're overweight, you're not working out, you're eating the wrong things, of course that is going to actually affect your mental and physical spirit and body and everything.
Of course. I mean, truth is compassionate, and I don't know where we went down this rabbit hole of it not being compassionate anymore, and people wanting to be shielded from the truth because it offends them or it hurts them. And a lot of this body positivity movement, just in general, so, totally, yes. Be fine with the body you're born in and what you have and what you've got. But this idea that we should not strive to be better or strive to be healthier, and particularly with young women, because I see this with young women more than any other demographic, it seems. It's just so detrimental. And we're going to get into some of the facts around obesity, how it ties to other chronic illnesses and chronic ailments that you will experience in your life if you continue down this path. But first, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Let's listen to some young women talk about fat phobia in our culture. Here's TikTok number 1.
So a few months ago, this girl on Twitter went to a Harry Styles concert, and she wanted to buy a hoodie or a crew neck, and noticed that she couldn't buy it because her size were sold out. All the extra larges, the 1X, the 2X, the 3X, they were all sold out, right? And, she went on Twitter and she complained about how she hates that skinny people buy up all the plus size stuff. And, the skinny Harry's got super mad at her because how dare a fat person be upset that her size is sold out? How dare a fat person be so upset that a bunch of skinny people bought her size? And I noticed, well, it's nothing new, but, I noticed this over and over again A fat person would go and complain about how their size is never there. And skinny people would get super angry that a fat person expressed their feelings. And it's just because skinny people hate fat people. It's nothing new.
Let's pause. Savannah, I must say, I don't want to offend you or anything, but you're particularly skinny.
Thank you.
Do you hate fat people?
I don't hate fat people at all, but I will tell you that I actually do have a lot of beef with the current industry, the fashion industry, and the fact that all of the mannequins are obese right now. And that if you go shopping online for a piece of clothing, the models are obese.
Right.
And I don't understand why we're perpetuating and we're pushing the culture of obesity on people as, again, like you said, something normal and accepting. When I'm like, no, bro, that's unhealthy. And also, why are we pretending that everybody that walks into a Lululemon is obese? Like,
Right. It's
What?
really...
what are we doing?
It's really a false characterization of everything that's happening right now, and I totally get it. Fat bodies exist. Fat people exist. Does that make it healthy? No. And I understand that. And I understand that people want to be seen. I hate this argument of, I'm not represented, therefore I feel like I can't do X, 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 Y, Z, whatever. I think it's a completely BS argument. But this idea that because it exists, we should make it healthy or normalize it in a way that teaches people not to be conscious of their health choices, of their wellness, I think is completely ridiculous. And again, it is something that seems to target women in particular.
You know what the obesity class really is too? It's just another way for people to victimize themselves. Let's be honest, right? People victimize themselves with race, with their gender, now with their weight. To be quite honest with everybody in the chat, and I'm going to be very blunt with this, the majority of people are obese because they're lazy and they don't want to go to the gym, because they don't want to sacrifice, because they don't want to take care of their bodies, because they don't want to put the time and effort into researching how to properly take care of their bodies. So when they feel sick, they feel depressed because your microbiome in your stomach is directly tied to your emotions, to your brain. You're feeling groggy, you're feeling bad, and you're like, oh, I feel this way because society hates me. I feel bad because of society. I feel sick because of society. If everyone just accepted me, I would feel better. No, you're not going to feel better because you're not living a healthy lifestyle. And I promise you every single time, because people love doing the whole, oh, well, some people are obese because of a health concern. Like with everything, very, 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 very small, minute percentage.
They always find the little outlier, and then the outlier becomes the argument.
Genuinely, and I'm like, what are we doing? I want to live in reality for one day. I really would.
Do. And it's okay. I'm just be honest about it. And it is the reality. It is what's happening. Can we be honest about it? I know, Taylor, you talked about your wife and Victoria's Secret and this whole, because Victoria's Secret, for those of you who don't know, did this whole campaign where they were like, well, do we need Victoria's Secret angels anymore? We want, quote, real women is what they called it. And then they ushered in plus size models and changed what the entire branding of what their company has ever been. And your wife had sort of an interesting reaction to seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for like wanting to accept people and
Absolutely.
like, undo these unrealistic standards and that type of thing. But people like lingerie brands exist or originally existed because women want to feel sexy. And so her whole point was just, I don't want this brand to remind me how fat I am. I want it to make me feel sexy when I buy it, And so that was basically her perspective.
You know what, Amola? And you made a really good point yesterday. And I want to bring it up because you said this and it just blew my mind. Going back to the unrealistic body standards, that's how this all started off, right? In the early 2000s, Paris Hilton was stick thin. She was a skeleton. If you had any fat on your body, it was just weird and bad. And, everyone wanted to be stick thin. So we were on that extreme side of the spectrum. And then you and I were talking about how then we went to like my 600-pound life and how that became normalized. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, if you're not 600 pounds, you're healthy.
Right. Yeah, no, that's where we're at with virtually everything in life. Our political conversations, our lifestyle, our entertainment. We just keep upping and upping and upping and upping the threshold.
It's more extreme.
Yes, it gets more extreme. And then suddenly the extreme things that you see aren't extreme anymore and you need something more. Suddenly going on and watching My 600-Pound Life is not going to be entertaining anymore because you're like, I've been there and I've seen it, and guess what? Now 40% of our population is obese. This is nothing new. It's going to have to be 700-Pound Life. It's going to have to be 800-Pound
You know what?
Life.
Now that you're saying this too, there is a TLC show called 1,000-Pound Sisters.
can't make this stuff up.
You're
can't
totally
make it
right.
up.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, you have to make this point on air because it blew my mind because I was like, you're totally right. It started out with 600 pounds. Now we have 1,000-pound sisters. Like, it keeps getting more and more extreme.
Yeah, until it's, and that's already unlivable, but it's going to become something that's completely unlivable. And we are just ushering ourselves into this WALL-E era. I don't know if you guys have seen Pixar's WALL-E. If you haven't, watch it. Very depressing film for a kid's cartoon, I must say.
Yeah, or you could go to Walmart. It's essentially the same thing.
Right? Or just like fast forward into 2030, and then that's where we're all at.
Yeah.
Well, let's try. We got how many? We got maybe a minute into this TikTok, so let's keep watching.
Don't do it to me.
You know, there's something that we just found out. They hate fat people, but they love buying their clothes. Skinny people buy the hoodies and the huge sweatshirts so they can get that baggy effect, but they wouldn't buy like the tights. The tights most definitely got to be their size, you know. And it bothers me because skinny people they have everything, you know. When you go into the mall, 95% of the clothing stores are for skinny people. Half of the stuff in the stores only go up to like a size 6. Like, it doesn't even have 16.
That is not true.
16.
I feel like that's not true at all.
I want to jump in there and say that's not true. I've never been to a store in my entire life where there's only been up to a size 6. If anything, I can never find my size in anything because the clothes are too big. What's going on?
Yeah, it's just you said something important. On every single characteristic that you can have, somebody will try to sell you on your oppression. And in the same light, there's this whole thing happening right now called skinny shaming, and now skinny girls are coming back and saying, well, I'm oppressed because of where I am at. And there's this idea that if you represent a small section of society, well, now obesity does not represent a small section, it's a much larger one, that the world and reality is meant to morph to how you view it. It's meant to morph to make you the most comfortable, and F all those other people who represent what is typically standard or objectively standard, because you represent an outlier and are now uncomfortable because of that.
Well, the reason, too, I speak out against this so vehemently, if you will, is because when I first moved to Austin, it was the first time I was paying bills, I was living by myself, and I started gaining a lot of weight because I found this place in Austin that was like gourmet donuts. They were bomb.
Like, every day.
Yes. I gained 20 pounds and I felt so uncomfortable with my body. And I remember this distinct moment when I said, I'm eating because I'm uncomfortable, and I'm uncomfortable with my body and I want to eat. So I can take one of two pathways and start working out right now and getting more disciplined with my diet because I'm feeling groggy because I am eating a little bit bad and it's making me feel bad. I feel self-conscious. Or I could take the path of continue to eat the donuts, continue to just be sad, but it makes me feel better in the moment, so that instant gratification is worth it. I decided to take the path of starting to work out and eat a little bit healthier. My mental clarity was better.
Absolutely.
The way that I viewed myself was better. My confidence was better. And again, maybe those things don't need to be directly tied to your body per se, but your actual health. Like, this is a health issue. This isn't about being skinny or fat. This is about your health and making sure you feel good internally, because how you, I guess, not feel internally, but are internally, like, it shows externally, right? Like mentally and physically. So, if you don't feel good, it shows.
Right. And I noticed that a lot in just in general. And you can apply this to other parts of your life. When I was on the left and super unhappy and constantly searching for oppression, I felt a lot of discomfort on a day-to-day basis. And you can look internally and go, okay, I feel a lot of discomfort right now. Let me look inside myself. Let me figure out what's going wrong. Let me try to find some truth behind this and fix it myself. Or I can turn that discomfort around and project it onto other people and put everybody else in the same place that I'm in. And that's why I became an organizer. I was like, hey, come join me in this discomfort that I'm feeling and this anger that I'm feeling. And I think the same thing applies to health, and health is, objectively attached to weight and these things that we experience in terms of our bodies and obesity and fat tissue and all these things. And they can feel this discomfort and go, well, instead of looking inside myself and thinking, okay, is there something I could be doing better with my life? Instant gratification society. Right.
Yeah, that's what it is. Nobody wants to get to the root of the problem. They say, I want this to be covered up right now. I want to feel better right now. So I'm going to eat the donut, or I'm going to take the depression pills. Like, okay, I just want to say this now too, because we are an instant gratification society. Depression is a normal human emotion. You do not need to take depression pills to combat that. Everybody feels depressed. You're not supposed to feel happy all the time. And taking these big pharma medications are going to make you feel worse in the long term. Understand that these are human emotions. Understand how to handle that and discipline your own mind and body, because this is a normal thing. And stop giving into the instant gratification that in the long term is making you feel worse.
Oh man, you're so right. Let's ride that tangent for a little bit, because I actually woke up this morning, I was watching Russell Brand, a huge fan of his.
Dude, me too.
He's so based.
So spot on. I found him the other, maybe a year ago, and I was like, I thought he was like a woke comedian, but his content is so good.
Yeah, you're like, he's on it, and he's represented this. I think he's going to be massive, way more massive than he is already now, because I think he's somebody that people from all walks of life can just listen to and go, oh, there's a lot of clarity there. But he made this video talking about something Elon Musk tweeted, saying, SSRIs and antidepressants and Adderall and things like that. This is not the issue. This is not the solution to the issues that you're feeling right now. And looking into more like naturopathic forms of responding to these emotions. And I think as a society, we've become so reactive in our medicine and in our health, and we wait for problems to arise. And then we go, well, here's a big pharma solution to that, or here's a fat phobia to justify where you're at.
That's
right
what I was
going to
say. I was like, we don't wait for problems to arise. We create the problems. You and I were talking about behind the scenes too, how putting kids on Adderall and diagnosing them with ADHD is a very recent thing, actually, because back in the day, it was like, yeah, your kid's crazy because he's a little boy, he has a lot of energy. And now it's like, oh, is your child acting like a child? Meds.
Right. And I started noticing that just listening to the radio. I felt like every hour on the radio, I'd hear an ad that's like, does your child like to run around and play with things and doesn't like to have intelligent adult conversations at 5 years old? Go see a doctor and see about some ADHD medication. Unbelievable. So yeah, I think in part we do create problems like that. The whole fat phobia thing, the ADHD thing too. But as far as this reactionary medicine that we're going to, we're like waiting for people to develop chronic illnesses and then being like, here's a big pharma solution to that. Here is an antidepressant. Here is an anti-anxiety medication. Instead of teaching our average everyday citizens, here are some proactive steps that you can take in your daily life that might stop you from getting diabetes.
And I'll take you one step further. I'm so sorry to cut you off. You're making a great point there. We actually create a lot of chronic diseases in this country with our food supply, with the foods that we are ingesting, with not going out in the sun enough. Vitamin D, very important for your mood, very important for your health. Not supplementing naturally like you talked about. Everyone just jumps straight to the doctor. Nobody wants to say, hey, feeling a little sick. Maybe I'm low on vitamin C. Maybe I need some zinc. It's always, nope. Straight to the doctor, straight to the doctor.
Right, and that was something when I was young. I used to think that the lefties and the hippies were the ones who were like, oh, I'm naturopathic. Right, you're like,
I was the same way.
I'm like, you're insane. I used to see like on TV, like the really hippie people who are just like, I heal my own body.
Essential oils, dude.
Yeah, and they're like, the sun is a doctor. I'm like, okay, you guys are crazy.
They're like hula hooping around, and now we're over here like, yes, the sun.
Now the conservatives are like, be skeptical of your doctors and your medical practitioners.
Isn't it so weird how the liberals from the 70s are essentially like modern day right wing?
Yes.
Like, how did that happen?
Right. So I'm like looking back, I'm like, okay, so leftists used to be right in a lot of ways. They were
like anti-big corporation, anti-war, like
pro-skepticism. Yeah, they questioned everything and were like, you know what? I just want to lead my own life. I don't know what you're trying to sell me on this establishment stuff. I just want to go about it. And now
I know.
I'm like, that's me.
Are we the hippies? I'm actually okay with it, but okay.
No, it really, really does feel like it. But yeah, I'm not hopeful for where we're heading from a medical standpoint and a health standpoint in this country at all.
Yeah. I tried to go to the doctor the other day because I bit my tongue. It hurt really bad. It was hurting for a while. So I was like, hey, doc, having a little bit of loss of taste and I bit my tongue. I'd love to get it checked out. We're like, well, we got to go through the COVID symptoms. Loss of taste is one of the symptoms. So they said, well, we can't come see you in the office because loss of taste is a COVID symptom, so you might have COVID. And I was like, I just told you I bit my tongue, and I've been having issues specifically with my tongue, and I'm not sick in any way, shape, or form. And they were like, sorry, can't see you.
That's ridiculous too. So I used to work in medicine before I started working here at PragerU, and there was just a massive amount of doctors who were like, "I'm just going to go to telemedicine. I'm not going to see patients in person anymore." Do people, and I don't think people realize the detriment of not seeing a patient in person to actually discuss what they are going through.
Hey doc, I got this weird bump. Okay, here's some medicine.
Right, it's ridiculous. Like, I've seen patients where a 90-year-old will call into the clinic for telehealth and be like, "Hey, my leg really hurts," and the doctor goes, "Okay, we'll take ibuprofen." And because you saw them through telehealth, you didn't see they had a massive blood clot on their leg. And that's where we're pushing ourselves into this technological age of not only just entertainment, lifestyle, and leisure, but medicine too. And it's getting to the point where if you have any sort of issue, you can just go on your phone and be like, "I feel this way." And they're like, "Here's an antidepressant. Here's just a random medication to put in your body," and no doctor to explain what it does to you.
WebMD, you're probably dying. Also, here's anxiety medication because I just gave you anxiety by telling you you're probably going to die.
Right. And you
Yeah.
can do it all online. It's all in your
Yay.
pocket. You don't even have to talk to a doctor. For all of you with social anxiety who don't want to talk to anybody, yeah, and stay in your house and keep yourself disconnected from everybody. Don't go out into the sunlight. I just cannot wait.
You know that SpongeBob meme that's like, we need the metaverse, like the rainbow?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the modern day.
You will be plugged in and you will be happy. Here's another TikTok on the hashtag fatphobia hashtag on TikTok. Here we go.
I feel good about it, but then after I eat, it looks like this. Why? Babe, because
I'm really afraid to open this door, but I'm gonna do it. What if it was just fat? What if it wasn't your uterus? I want to invite you to consider what it might be like for somebody living in a fat body to see a video like that. And why we are so quick to explain away parts of our body as being like natural or being an organ instead of being fat. What if that's natural too? What if there's not anything inherently wrong with having a larger body? I've gotten so many hate comments whenever I try to call out thin people, and I really hesitate to do it again, but for me, it's not just my uterus. For people without uteruses, it's not just their uterus, and that's okay.
People
As
without
always, a
uteruses.
huge disclaimer, this is not about this specific video, it's about the larger cultural conversation around body size and weight stigma. Thanks.
The larger cultural conversation.
And yeah, it's so interesting because it's never, at least for me, and I'm sure for you, it's never about bullying people or being like, "This is gross, this is disgusting," you know? It's just about, we cannot create a new culture, especially with the younger generation growing into this, that is something that is inherently healthy and that it is the same as having a lifestyle where you're eating well and you are exercising. I saw a video on TikTok the other day of this mom, and she's saying, "Well, I'm a new mom and I'm having all these political and social discussions with my young daughter, and we're talking about fatness and weight and obesity, and I'm telling her, like, that's not a problem at all." And she's like, "And I don't care if you get obese, I don't care if you get fat, as long as you are mentally happy. I don't care about the state of your body."
Yeah.
That's the culture we're fostering. That's what is concerning.
And this is what I was talking about earlier with the want to be validated. Now, in our society, because we really have not suffered in any way, shape, or form, we are very, very coddled in this country, which is why we create our own problems, because people need something to fight for and something to be mad about, because everything is very easy for us in the modern day. Like,
Right.
think about the fact that people used to have to garden and farm and work and create and go fight in wars and battles. Like, I think about this all the time, right? That there was a period of time in the world where men would just straight up run into battle, like battlefield, all right, we're going to potentially die,
Right.
just start charging each other, right?
Right.
And now the modern man is like, "You use inflammatory language towards me and that really hurt my feelings." And I'm like, what? What?
I see guys running around LA and it's like they have nail polish on and are like buying girls' clothes and things like that. And it's just, I can feel, like, we know the testosterone levels are lower in men in this
Yep.
generation, lower than they've ever been before.
Partially because of the food supply too.
Yes, partially because of food and all these synthetic hormones and everything that you're breathing in and eating and all this stuff.
Yep.
But you can feel it. Like, as I can watch and be like, that is a very feminine man.
Yeah, you know, the average modern day man is more feminine than I am. which is weird.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, going back to this video and what you were talking about regarding bullying as well, because for the longest time, I refused to speak on the body positivity movement because I didn't like when obese people would be looked at, laughed at, and bullied. I thought that it was rude. Like, I'm a Christian woman, and I don't think that tearing these people down is the way to get to them. But then I realized that not only are people trying to normalize this, they're encouraging it, they're validating it, and they're telling other people, like, if you don't want to be obese, you're a bad person.
Yes.
And at that point, I was like, okay, no, we're validating the wrong thing here. I'm very much against bullying. I'm very much against tearing these people down. But I am pro helping them achieve their greatest talent, their greatest life, right? I think that's the saddest part about a lot of these videos for me, is that every single American has so many talents, so much that they could do, but the average person doesn't even know what they're capable of because they're holding themselves back with their own mentality, with their own lifestyle, with how they're treating their bodies, their minds. It's so sad to me. Like, we could be such a prosperous country.
We really could. We have all the resources. You have all the resources to do virtually anything you want to do with your life, and instead we are just stagnated by all of the stuff that's happening right now. And I've seen those very same videos that you're talking about, where it's like, if you want to date a fit or skinny woman, you are fat phobic.
Yeah.
If you're not attracted to this body, you are fat phobic. The amount of mental hoops that you have to jump through in order to land on that conclusion, and then to deny what is just factually true. And we can go through some of the facts on this just so we have an educational element to the things. Not that we're not being very educational right now.
We're the most educational.
We're the most educational. We are basically teachers right now.
So true.
But the obesity rate has jumped. So this is from the era of 1999 to 2000, and then they did another one in 2017 to 2018. Obesity prevalence increased from 30.5% to 42.4% in this country. Isn't that, like, it's unbelievable.
That's quite an increase.
It's quite an increase, and this is from the CDC. So we know how much we love the CDC, but at least this seems semi-accurate. It says on average, 1 out of every 3 adults is obese, which is about 36% of adults. We spend about $150 billion on obesity care in our country instead of being proactive about these things. And nearly 1 in 5 deaths is preventable because of obesity.
Oh, yeah, girl. The past 2 years, regarding a certain disease that was ravaging everybody. There was an interesting statistic about how about 75% of the people that were overweight were being admitted to the hospital. They succumb to, certain diseases and viruses a lot easier. It makes their life threatened. Their lives are threatened more when they get sick because of obesity. But then again, you call that out and it's like, oh, well, you're a bad person. You just hate fat people. And it's like, no, I care about people. I care about all people, which is why we're promoting this and trying to talk about the health repercussions, because this isn't just like a, oh, you're overweight, you feel bad type thing. Like, this goes into multiple different angles.
Yes, it absolutely does. And it only took 2 years for us to get the truth on that. It only took 2 years for CNN and MSNBC and ABC to come out and say, maybe exercise. I know we told you to stay in your house and lock yourselves down and not get sunlight and not go out to do anything with your peers or your community or even your families. But it'd be probably good if you exercised and were a little healthy and made healthy choices.
I don't know, Amala. I mean, that entire year where everyone was locked in their houses, I was just thriving being locked alone in my apartment by myself, not able to go anywhere or do anything, not being able to go out in the sun. I really enjoyed that.
Boosted the old mental health, I think.
Oh, yeah, totally. You know?
Yeah.
I made a bunch of imaginary friends in my house as an adult. It was a great time.
Now, guys, we are going to move on. I did have more TikToks to show you. They will be linked down below if you guys want to go and watch more of the insanity that is being fostered on these social media apps. We're going to get into some other subject matters. We're going to talk Amber Heard and modern-day feminism and talk about our feeling on both of those things. I am going to say goodbye to everybody who's watching on PragerU YouTube. Head over to my channel, Amala Epinobi, Unapologetic, and watch there if you'd like to continue this conversation with us. I'm watching your chats. You guys are very engaged, so go ahead and hop over on that other side. Let's talk about Amber Heard. You said you're sort of keeping up with this. You've seen what's going on.
I know the basics. I know the basics.
Okay. So for those of you who are unaware, I don't know how you could be unaware at this point, but Amber Heard in an op-ed for the Washington Post accused Johnny Depp of both sexual and physical assault during their very short-lived marriage. And Johnny Depp called